Well, welcome, boys and girls, to Seth and Sean Sports Radio. Seth is detained, and he will be here in a couple of minutes, but I am Sean Palmer. You can find us on the Twitter at Seth and Sean Sports. We're going to put that on the bottom just in case you want to follow us. There it is. Seth and Sean on Twitter is at Seth and Sean, or Facebook, you got our Seth and Sean Sports page, and then you can also find Seth individually at S. Kamens and myself at SU Lawyer 2001. Oh, there was Seth, and Seth is gone and comes, and he'll be back in a little bit. But, it's funny. Generally, the All-Star break, the Major League Baseball All-Star break, is the break in the action, right? There's very little going on. There's no NFL. There's no NHL. There's no NBA. There's just baseball, and it's the Major League All-Star break. And I think it's a missed opportunity for certain sports such as the WNBA, which certainly could flood the entire weekend with games, or other sports. And it's a missed opportunity for them, but it does focus a lot on Major League Baseball. And we saw the home run hitting contest on Monday. Albert Pujols certainly really taking center stage. Now, it was the Juan Soto show. It was the Julio Rodriguez show. But for people that don't, I view Albert Pujols a little bit like Michael Jordan. And Seth, are we ready? Yep. So we're going to bring Seth on there. Seth Kamens over there. And Seth, I was saying I view Albert Pujols a little bit like Michael Jordan in the fact that if you've seen him for the last 10 years, you don't really understand how good Albert Pujols was way back when. And if they had – so he wasn't the greatest player of all time. I'm not getting to that point. I'm talking more like The Last Dance, right? So The Last Dance, which we saw during COVID, opened up the eyes to a lot of younger basketball fans as to just how good Michael Jordan was. And we talked about this on the show during COVID. And I think Albert Pujols needs to get a little bit of that now, because for the last 5 to 7 years, Albert Pujols has just been trash. But before then, he was the best player potentially that we've ever seen outside of Barry Bonds. You're on mute. I can't hear a word you're saying. So let me take you off mute. I can't unmute you. You have to unmute yourself.
There we go. Sorry about that.
All right.
You've wanted to mute me for years. So
that is certainly true. No doubt about that. But
enjoy that. But joking aside, at one point, Albert Pujols was the second best first baseman of all time, and was in the discussion with Garrick. If the trend had continued of that level to surpass Garrick and be God knows where in the stratosphere or in the pantheon. But that's why I was so surprised. I was really surprised to hear all the accolades he received during the Derby. And yes, I did watch part of the Derby. It's probably the most baseball I've watched all year, if you consider that baseball. Not because of anything negative, but because for the last 10 years, he's been relatively irrelevant.
Sure. So let's throw some stats out for you. So from 2001 to 2012, his first 11 years. Well, let's take out the year for the Angels. So just his years with St. Louis. So 2001 to 2011. So his 10-year average. He averages 40 home runs, 121 RBIs, has a 328 average, a 421 on-base percentage, a 617 slugging percentage for an OPS of 1.037. Definitely outside of Barry Bonds, the best player of that time. No question.
Yeah, I guess A-Rod's prime. A-Rod didn't let that was past his prime.
Yeah.
I don't. Okay.
But even if you use A-Rod as a prime, A-Rod didn't hit 328. Like, A-Rod was certainly a power hitter that goes with that, but I don't think he touches this with regards to this. Now, from 2000, so let's just look at that, 41-21. By the way, he averaged walking 89 times and only striking out 64. I think that may have been the biggest feat of all, is that this man never struck out more than he walked. So, but then when he signs that big contract with Los Angeles, and let's say since then, just taking that into account, I want to get – hold on. I got to figure out how to do this. There we go. So just looking at the Los Angeles Angels numbers to now, I'm going to get rid of this. Baseball Reference does this really well, so I just got to figure it out. There we go. Okay, he averages 22 home runs. Remember, 41-20. 41-20 and 328. He goes to 22-76 and 255.
Yeah, below average for a first baseman.
Dramatically below average. Strikes out twice as much as he walks, but again, it's 61 strikeouts. So, I mean, in 121 games, that's still well below what you would think.
Strikeouts has never been. Yeah,
right.
That's never been the issue.
But remember, 1.013, I believe, for OPS, and he drops to 0.756. So, Seth, I get what you're saying in that in 10 years he hasn't been relevant. But let's remember these guys like Julio Rodriguez and Juan Soto grew up with the true Albert Pujols, right? The Hall of Famer Albert Pujols. And they've been in the minors for the new Albert Pujols.
The new Albert Pujols has been around for 10 years. So realistically, I mean, talk about Soto. Soto's 24.
Sure.
So Pujols' prime really didn't coincide with Soto. Soto from age 30, from bar mitzvah year going forward.
Bar mitzvah year. So Pujols has averaged 296. He's got 685 home runs and 2,170 RBIs. A 915 OPS. So Gehrig obviously is above him. Well, Gehrig is well above him at this point. Who else is in that? You said before that he would be second 10 years ago. I'm not sure he's that far behind still, even with 10 years. I mean, Jimmy Fox didn't have the longevity.
Jimmy Fox was the name. Jimmy Fox was the name that came to mind for me.
I mean, Jimmy Fox only played 16 years, so that's important.
But that's long. But that's long enough.
No. Understand. But the last 3 years of Jimmy Fox's career, he had 19 home runs, 8 home runs, 5 home runs, and 3 home runs. So, I mean, he really didn't do anything the last 5 years of his career. The last time he batted 300, he was 33 years old. So he ended his career essentially at 33. Pujols, if he ended his career at 33, would have been the second best, no problem, right? We already said that. So is Fox in there? Willie McCovey, 521 home runs. I'm not sure McCovey's any better. Cepeda's better.
I'm looking actually at the comparisons are pretty funny. Fox, 3-time MVP, 9-time All Star.
Yep.
Pujols, 3-time MVP, 9-time All Star.
Yep.
Fox, best player on 2 championship teams. Pujols, best player for the most part on 3 championship teams. Career stats, again, this is prior to this year. Well, Fox, 325, 428, 609. OPS 1.038. 2,700 hits, 530 home runs in a different era for home runs.
Also a segregated era where you didn't play against the best, right?
Understood. There was no Oscar Charleston. There was no Cool Papa Bell. I mean, they were hitters. There was no Satchel Paige. Well, he was before Satchel Paige anyway. But agreed. Look, I think you can make an argument either way.
Okay. So he's in the top 2 to 3.
Do you consider Stan Musial an outfielder or a first baseman?
No, he's an outfielder. I mean, to me, he's an outfielder.
Okay. Then, look, at worst, you have Pujols at 3. I don't think anyone's going to put Miggy Cabrera ahead of him. Hank Greenberg, McCovey.
Not long enough.
No, Pujols is about, Frank Thomas was great. Bagwell was great. But for all intents and purposes, Pujols it shows you how amazing his first 10 years were. That his second act.
Yeah, his second act only dropped him 1. I mean, if that, right. And I think it really was, look, and I don't believe anybody that, I think it was a good reminder of just how good he was in seeing in the All-Star game this year. You haven't seen him in an All-Star game, I believe, in 7 years, since 2015, and before that, not since 2010. And it's a good reminder of how much he is beloved amongst the players. Now, look, there's rumors that he's really like 46 years old, not 42.
He's playing the Julio Franco.
Yeah, but at the same time, you know what? I don't care what age you did what you did. Yeah, I really like. Okay, so you hit 37 home runs and 130 RBIs at age 21 as opposed to age 24 if he lied on his birth certificate. Okay, that's fine. Maybe he shouldn't have won Rookie of the Year. Okay, but he still put up 37 home runs and 130 RBIs in his first major league season. It doesn't matter how old you are. That's still rather difficult to do, especially with an OPS as a rookie of 1.013, which I think is just what you just said Jimmy Fox's lifetime was, 1.013, if I had to give or take. So, I mean, yeah, I think it's a fond farewell, right? This is his last year. It probably either this year or next year will be Miggy's. It just depends on which one. Miggy deserved to be an All-Star, Miggy Cabrera, and still he might retire this year. Look, I don't give Rob Manfred a whole lot of credit. If you've listened to this show, you know I despise this man, right? I despise everything that this guy stands for.
Who was the last baseball commissioner you did like?
Fay Vincent.
And he was there for what?
2 years.
2 years.
And before that, A. Bartlett Giamatti. Because you know what? That's when a commissioner was
credible.
What's that? It was credible, right? He wasn't a face of the ownership. And that's what commissioners have become, are faces of the ownership rather than commissioners of their various sports. So, look, I love Giamatti, even though he ruled against Pete Rose, because he loved baseball. I loved Fay Vincent for the same reason. Bud Selig destroyed it, and Manfred has continued down. But the one I will give Manfred a lot of credit for this. And look, the baseball union had something to do with this too. So you can give credit where credit is due. Is adding a legacy player. If it's up to the commissioner, and whether the commissioner feels that there is a legacy player deserving of being in the All-Star game, he is entitled to do it under the collective bargaining agreement. And this year that allowed Albert Pujols. And look, Cabrera deserved it. I don't care what you say. Miggy's having a great year. I'm going to get up his stats right now. But truth be told, Miggy is throwing down that can't be right. 3 homers, 34 RBIs with a 280. No. It's the 280. It's the 287 average, I think. Oh, he's only played in 79 games. Okay. So Miggy's had a decent year. Certainly.
You just said he had 3 home runs.
Yeah, he did. He hasn't hit for
3 home runs count as a decent year.
He hasn't hit for power, that's for sure. I think he wanted to go in as a 300 hitter. He's now batting 310. Over the last 3 years, he's batted 250, 256. He's back up to 290. So that may be where I was going with that. But anyway, having those two on the team, well deserving. And I like the concept of having that player because at the end of the day, who cares? It goes right back to that this is an exhibition, right? This shouldn't count. It does not count. In fact, last night's game, if it was a tie, do you know how they would have decided it?
Home run derby.
Home run derby, baby. Let's get it's straight out of the World Cup.
Right. We found something worse than ending a game with penalty kicks.
Except for the fact that the penalty kicks count and the home run hitting contest does not. Right? The game counts when you have goal kicks. So, but in the middle of all this, in the middle of the fact that no sports are taking place and we really don't care, and WNBA has not really pushed itself into the forefront, which I believe it should in the future. It should rack games up during this weekend because there's no live sporting events. We have the
I'm
women's
watching the Women's
European.
World Cup right now.
We have. I was just going to say we have the women's European Championship.
Championships.
We have a whole lot of money changing hands in the EPL, and we have Juan Soto saying no to $440 million. So let's go backwards. What was your take on Juan Soto's $440 million saying no thanks?
You wonder why people get frustrated with players.
Do you think he should have taken it?
What do you say?
Do you think he should have taken it?
Look, I get it. It's not $30 million a year. I get it on the average. But let's be honest, in 12 years, he's probably not going to be a $30 million a player anyway. Yeah, I would take $440 million guaranteed. I'm sorry, call me crazy. Now, again, I don't know the breakdown. I can see you just waiting to respond. So I'm assuming that a lot of this is deferred or is in some version of an annuity. No?
None of it is actually deferred. That's not where I was going to go.
I did not go through the specifics of the contract. I just rolled my eyes.
All right. So $15 million, 29.3 AAV over the course of time, right? Yeah. Buys out 2 arbitration years, buys out all his free agency, and ties him up until he's 38 years old. So that's the crux of it. 38 years old, he gets $29 million a year until he's 38. So I understand what Washington did, right? They threw out the biggest contract humanly possible and said, hey, fans, we're giving him $500 million, right? And that sells, right, if you're the Nationals. Now, if you're Juan Soto and you said, okay, you're going to give me $500 million, okay, give it to me over 10 years. Don't give it to me over like if I gave you $500 million over 50 years in an annuity, it's not the same as getting it as 15. It's not the same as getting it in 10. And you're in finance, you know this. The end result doesn't necessarily mean that the value is there. $440 million. Look, Mike Trout got 340 over 10 years, right? So, I mean, if you're Juan Soto,
Mike Trout.
Oh, but some people think he's better.
He is not. Some people think he has the potential to be better.
Let's understand also, Mike Trout got that contract at 27 and Juan Soto's 23. So there's a lot more there, right? Now, I do understand you're buying out 2 arbitration years, which would be less than probably $29 million. I get that.
And probably the last 2 or 3 years of the deal, considering a lot of his game is predicated on athleticism, may not be there at age 35.
Agreed. And David Alger said this the other day. He said, what should happen is, and he said this on The Athletic, he said, pump it up to 481, okay? Divide that by 15, and you have a $32 million average, which is less than Mike Trout, but greater than, look, if he took the $29 million, he would be the 20th most paid player, best paid player. If you bump it up to 32, I think he jumps to 6 or 5. And that's behind the Max Scherzers of the world who are on their 3-year contract.
Right. But see, that's kind of the point of this. Yet he may be the 20th highest per year.
Sure.
Great. But Max Scherzer is signed for 1 more year. A lot of these deals are, 2, whatever it is, 2 years,
right.
1 year.
Right.
Pretty much you're guaranteeing generational wealth here.
You're guaranteeing generational wealth with 1 year of that contract.
He could be hurt next year.
He could.
Look, he doesn't want to be in DC.
I'm not sure that's the case.
I think if they're offering 440, if he's going to say no and he wants to be in DC, this stays in discussion and say, look, can we play with this a little bit?
No, I think it says
maybe because Scott Boras is an agent and Scott Boras brings everybody and their mother to free agency.
Except for, yeah.
But again, Juan Soto, if I remember correctly, is not eligible for free agency in 2 years?
2 more years. 2.5 years.
2.5 years. So there is, at a minimum, this is not a bad starting point for a discussion. This is not an insulting offer.
No, I agree with that. I wouldn't say it's insulting.
He's making $400 million. It's not insulting.
I said it's not insulting. I agree with you.
If he wants to be in DC, then this stays quiet, and we see how we can play this out.
Hold on a second, but you can't blame it on Boris that this came out, because Washington's the one that said it, not Boris.
Do you think Boris would have accepted the deal if it had stayed quiet?
No way.
No.
But do you think Washington wouldn't keep this quiet because they need to save face?
Of course they do.
So this was
$450 million.
This is a save face offer. That's all it is.
It's a very legitimate save face.
Yeah, but I don't. There was no chance.
You don't think this is a reasonable deal?
I don't think there was a reasonable chance of him accepting this. Not one bit. Not one bit.
Now, would there be any place where he would have been, or was this going to free agency no matter what?
So
something absurd like 550,
right? Look, remember, A-Rod when he signed the contract with Texas doubled the previous record for most total money. Yeah. Doubled it, right? Doubling this is obscene. I mean, doubling it is $680 million.
It's not a reasonable comparison.
No, I agree.
You're looking at $800 million.
No, you're asking.
You could buy an island.
Well, Uncle Stevie's got an island. It's called Long Island. But if you're saying if he gets traded to the Mets, would he? And Uncle Stevie, and I call him Uncle Stevie because he's Daddy Warbucks to me. Uncle Stevie offers him. It's good to be king every once. Now I understand what Yankee fans went through with Steinbrenner. So we never had that. If Uncle Stevie offers him $440 million with the Mets, your question is, will he accept it? No, of course not. No chance. Zero. He offers the same amount of money.
I don't think that was my question.
You said he doesn't want to play with Washington. So if he's
I'm asking if that's a part of this.
I think if he gets the free agency and Washington offers him the most money, he will stay with Washington. 100%. This is a money thing. 100% a money thing. So if the Mets come out,
he's never getting the free agency. Whether he's traded now or traded over the winter.
You think he's going to sign an extension somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope it's not.
I think he's going to be traded to the Dodgers.
Well, I hope it's not with the Mets. I really do. The Dodgers.
You haven't had the best luck with this kind of thing.
Well, trades we have always had good luck with, but this just seems obscene. And if you look at the majority of these big deals do not work out. They just don't. Pujols did not work out. Mike Trout has not worked out. Now, Mike Trout is still phenomenal, but you have not been able to build around him. Anthony Rendon has not worked out. Josh Hamilton did not work out. Steve Strasburg.
How about Francisco Lindor? How's that going for you?
You know my feelings on Lindor. Yeah. He's an overpaid player. He's overpaid. These deals, especially in the back end, do not work out. The best two deals.
That's why, as much as I hate to say it, I don't want the Yankees to sign Judge.
The best two deals, well, there are actually three. Four. The best four deals that have come out of this are Freddie Freeman's last Braves contract, Mookie Betts' contract with the Dodgers, which still has a long time to go. So talking about that. Derek Jeter's 10-year contract with the Yankees, because that was before the last 2 years. That worked out splendidly. And CC Sabathia's contract. Those are the contracts that have – and Max Scherzer with the Nationals. Those contracts, 7 or more years, have worked out. Every other long-term contract of 6 years plus, you got to be kidding me. And especially if it's a pitcher.
Mike Hampton?
What's that?
Mike Hampton? Kevin Brown?
Oh, I'd like to go see how many there are. There's longest contracts in history for each team. Fernando Tatis, well, we don't know that one yet. Mookie Betts, don't know. Wander Franco, don't know. Harper, 13 years and 330. So far, so good, right? So far, so good. Lindor, hate it. Seager, don't know. Trout, I can say Trout was 10 years and 360. So far, not so good. Manny Machado,
How long
10
ago
years,
was that? 2 years ago?
2021, so last year. It was an extension. Manny Machado, $300 million for 10 years. Probably has not worked out the way that they wanted. Giancarlo Stanton, we know that hasn't worked out. That's a horrible deal for the Marlins. Great deal for the Yankees. They're getting him at 20. Right. Robinson Cano, how'd that work out for the Mariners? Joey Votto, 10 years and 225. Pujols, A-Rod. Jeter, we talked about. A-Rod again. Dave Winfield, 10 years and 23. That worked out okay. I mean,
Richie Zisk.
Oh, you're on the same page I am. Awesome. Richie Zisk and Wayne Garland.
So for those of you who understand, this is actually in order of longest contracts in history as they were signed.
Yep. Wayne Garland, the first free agent class, 10 years and $2.3 million. We've come a long way. Inflation has certainly taken us somewhere. So while we're talking about big ass money, and that's big ass money, we're in transfer season in the EPL, which always boggles my mind on this money because we just talked about $440 million. And then this guy, Barca's player, Lewandowski, and I have no idea who this guy is. He just had a deal with a $512 million buyout. A buyout. Not even – that's his salary, I think, is $50 million. Is this guy – okay.
He's the best. He's probably the best forward in the world at this point.
He's 33, right?
Yeah. He would have won. I think he came in second twice for what's called the Ballon d'Or, which is the best soccer player in the world. He probably should have won it 1 year. What happens is nobody ever follows them because he plays in Bayern Munich, and he's not the team. He's more of a Ronaldo than a Messi is the best way to put it.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of baseball.
For us that have absolutely no clue what that means, please explain.
He is not the epitome of a team player, I think is the right way. He's not a clubhouse guy. Let's put it that way. But he is a machine. The reason nobody here knows him is because nobody here follows the German league, including me. I follow a little bit.
Well, I know Landon Donovan played with Bayern. That's about the only thing I know.
Right. So, I know more than that. So what happens is Lewandowski plays with Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich has won 9 out of the last 10 German championships. They've won a couple of Champions League. He is the best. He's the best scorer probably in the world. He's a machine, and he's moody, and he's not beloved anywhere.
So he's Wayne Rooney.
No, Wayne Rooney was loved in England, was loved in Man U. He's a better player than Wayne Rooney was. So he just decided arbitrarily that he didn't want to be in Bayern Munich anymore. And look, he had won 8 titles there. I don't blame him. He had 1 year left on his deal. And the funny part is Barcelona, who is in having a hellish time with financials, and we've dealt with it. We've talked about this a little bit in the past. It's called financial fair play. Somehow they've been able to sign him for a I think it was $50 million was the transfer fee, forgetting the salaries. But as you said, the buyout is some absurd number. 512 million. Yeah, he's the best player that's been out there, but there's other names. Neymar, who is, probably at one point was about the same. Now Paris Saint-Germain is trying to get rid of him, but nobody wants him.
So do these deals, and I'll say this because I don't know.
Yeah.
we talk about these long-term deals, these very, very long, expensive deals in baseball and in other sports. But look, basketball has a cap on the amount of years that you can give. Hockey has a cap, which is 8 for re-signings, which generally don't work out when you deal with an 8-year contract. Football has non-guaranteed years, so it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter.
Soccer contracts work out in the long term for this amount of time?
Well, this isn't a long deal. I think it's a 4 or 5 year deal.
At 33 years old.
Yeah, but again, he's not a midfielder. He's not running back and forth like a lunatic. He's a forward. I'm not enough of an expert to tell you, but it's pretty similar to every other sport where there are sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It also depends on what the expectation is based upon the deal. Is it him being one of the top 3 forwards in the world? Is it Barcelona winning the Champions League? These are reasonable questions. But you don't see 7, 8 year deals in soccer. They don't exist. Everything realistically is 3, 4 years, 5 years. So it's a little different because, let's be honest, the athleticism that is needed for soccer is so absurd that that especially the midfielders and the defenders, can't physically keep up at that point for a 10-year period most of the time.
Right. Messi signed a 9-year deal in 2005.
Right. Messi was 24, and Messi was the best player in the world.
Saul Niguez, no idea who that guy is.
Yeah, so he's actually, his didn't work out. He signed, I think, with Atletico Madrid.
He signed for 9 years, and Naki Williams signed for 9 years.
I don't know who that is. Who?
Denilson signed for 10.
Okay, that Denilson's Brazilian.
Okay. These are great. Andres Iniesta, Raul, and Iker Casillas, they signed for life.
That's all Real. Yeah, that's all Real Madrid and Barcelona.
They signed for life and then left 12 months later. So much for a lifetime contract.
Yeah, I think Iniesta was offered $50 million a year in Saudi Arabia. Casillas went back to Porto, which is where he was from. Which was not where he's from, because he won a World Cup with Spain, but it was his first team. Casillas was like 40 years old by this point. So they must have had outs with all these. I don't know who the third guy you said was.
I went off.
Are you impressed or scared that I know all this?
No, a little disgusted that these guys get lifetime.
I find this fascinating. Like, you talk about NBA free agency. This is NBA free agency on crack.
This is ridiculous because
this isn't one league. This is a continent with
I know
6 leagues going back and forth. It's incredibly fun to watch.
But
even if I don't know who the guys are.
But the thing is about this that gets me in general is that it seems like there's no rules, right? So I understand you say the fair play rules, and at some point I'll read up what that means.
You'll understand it better than I will.
I still haven't gotten it, right? I've read it a couple of times and gone, nah. I mean, at least you know, all right, if you're in baseball, you're going to hit certain luxury tax, right? You hit the Uncle Stevie tax or something along those lines. If you're in basketball, you have a soft cap and then you have a hard cap, right? And I finally got to the end of that. If you're in football, you know it's just a hard cap, right? And if you're in hockey, you know it's a hard cap and then you have a long-term injured reserve, which means it's kind of a soft cap as long as you put guys on there. And example number one is Tampa Bay a couple of years ago with Khrushchev, right? Where they played all year with a guy on long-term injured reserve, and then that doesn't count in the playoffs, so we can bring everybody back, like Patrick Kane. So it's kind of a little funky, but there's rules around that. I cannot for the life of me, Seth. I have read this every single year that we have been on this broadcast. I have read what this fair play nonsense means. And I still have no earthly clue as to how to say they can't sign this guy because of X. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to it. I'm sure there is. I just don't get it. And maybe we need to bring a soccer guy on here, somebody that actually understands that.
I don't think we know any soccer
I
guys.
really thought that was you, but that's
No.
we got to find a soccer guy in our 10 minutes of preparation that we take each week. We need to find our soccer guy.
If you're allowed wherever you're going to be to have 10 minutes of preparation.
10 minutes of preparation. 10 minutes of preparation. But yeah, so we have soccer going on. Donovan Mitchell and Kevin Durant are still on their respective clubs. The rumors are that Durant is going to be done before Mitchell, and Durant's going to go to Miami. So I'm still trying to figure out how that works with you guys, and I say you guys because you're a Nets fan, you guys getting anything of value back for him because you can't take out a Bayou unless you trade Simmons. So you're not taking Hero and 2 picks. That's not going to happen. First of all, it won't work under the cap. So is it Kyle Lowry? Is it and I don't see why you would take Kyle Lowry.
I have Ben Simmons. Why would I want Kyle Lowry?
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying.
Assuming Ben Simmons plays.
Assuming he plays. Assuming Kyrie plays too, right? Because just because you trade Durant doesn't mean you trade Kyrie. Seems like Kyrie's.
Why wouldn't you trade Kyrie if you could?
No, I don't think you can. That's the point.
That's the problem. Yeah,
I don't think
the only way you trade him is for Westbrook, and I don't.
Oh, I think that's dead. I don't think that's. By the way, did you see what Westbrook did with his agent this week? That was fun.
He fired him. Yeah.
He fired him. Did you see? And in something I had never seen before, and I've been a sports fan for 45 years, give or take.
46.
I have to feel between the ages of birth and 1, I probably was not a sports fan.
I doubt it. I think you were.
My parents knew nothing about sports. There was never sports on. So if that's the case, probably not. But anyway, I've never heard or seen an agent come out against his player, ever. Like, this was unprecedented to me, that the agent actually said, I'm breaking up with my player because we have a difference in philosophy on how he should continue his career. So it obviously shows that Westbrook wants to be traded, right? He does not want to stay in LA.
No.
And the agent believed that the best road forward was not to be traded for the 4th time in 4 years to 4 different teams, but rather to, I guess, buckle down, do what Darvin Ham wants, play a defensive.
Do what Carmelo Anthony did last year in Portland.
Yeah. Be a team player. Be a team player.
Be a team player. Be the 6th man, 7th man.
Do for $45 million. Right.
Look,
no,
I don't blame him for signing the deal.
No.
I blame them for offering it to him, but I don't blame him for signing the deal. So it's a weird quandary because I don't know a team that would want him.
Well, we went through it. There are none.
Yeah.
I mean, the only team that remotely has the wherewithal to do it and would want him is a team that's going to need to take a 1st-round pick from the Lakers to sacrifice a year. And who are those teams that have that cap room or a bad contract to trade back? The Nets could do it, conceivably, because I don't think if they're trading Durant, then they have no championship aspirations, right?
Right.
I mean, that would be a deal to make. Indiana, I don't think does it anymore, like at all. I think they're in different mode. By the way, the failed offer sheet of DeAndre Ayton was awesome. I love it. I absolutely love it. I love that teams try and do this stuff, and Kevin Pritchard has always been known as a guy that likes to do that. I mean, do you trade him back to New Orleans or to Charlotte? And more Charlotte than New Orleans. You trade him back.
You have a stud point guard that is just going to get better.
Yeah.
Why would you want Westbrook there?
Well, because they have no picks, and this would be a pick.
You need to be able to convince Ball that your team is building up
around you,
and you're not around you, and you're not throwing away years.
Well, Okay. Then what team can throw away years? Because I don't see any. Houston? Send him back to Houston?
The way he left, Houston's not an option. I don't know.
Houston's not an option anyway with Ivy and with Jalen Green.
No, Detroit's not an option at all.
Sorry. They're not an option with who'd they pick in the draft? Who was the third pick? I can't.
Jabari Smith.
I meant Smith and Jalen Green.
The problem is, as you said, nobody sees him as a positive at this point except himself.
Right. Even the agent said that, right? You would need to attach. That was the whole thing. The agent threw Westbrook under the bus and said, you're not a positive. You're a negative. We have to attach an asset with you in order to trade you. So
how does he not know this?
Ego.
I mean,
same reason Carmelo Anthony didn't know it with the Knicks and then with the Rockets.
It is a weird.
When you're the best at what you do, it's really hard to take a step down.
Yeah, but this has been going on for several years. And you would think that at some point, the point would get across, if not at any point last year, which was, let's be honest, a debacle. Why? How do you not realize this? Are you that able to avoid ESPN, The Athletic, all these sporting? I mean, maybe he is.
Maybe he just doesn't believe it. Maybe he just says that's not true.
If one person says, I'm blanking on the quarterback that just went to Cleveland.
You talking about Jacoby Brissett?
No, the starter that's going to be suspended.
Oh, Deshaun Watson.
If one masseuse.
We're going to this? Yeah.
Two masseuses said this.
That's a pattern.
30?
That's a problem.
Actually, I think Gary Aid posted that this is all fake, which is why Gary and I are just on different ends of the world. I cannot imagine 30 people say something and it's a lie.
Or there not be some truth to it, right? It doesn't have to be totally true.
Yeah, there's variations of truth. We all know this.
Right.
If one or two people said, you know what, he's a little past his prime. He's amazingly athletic, but the shooting, has gone downhill, and he's never been a shooter anyway. This is everybody in the NBA. This is everybody who watches the NBA, and we're knowledgeable fans, but we're not scouts. We're not.
We're not. Look, we're not David Thorpe. We're not the coach, right?
And we're not Henry Abbott. But we can see this. So I mean, look. He's there. You're probably right. I don't see who's going to trade for him. And even more interesting is after next year, I don't see who's going to sign him.
Right. Well, and he may go through a year of not playing like Carmelo did. And look, that's what it took for Carmelo to understand, right? Is he went through a year of not playing.
The funny thing is, I think Westbrook loves the game more than pretty much anyone. I would actually see him going to Europe somewhere. I don't see him sitting out. I don't think his mentality is that way.
The funny thing is, and we all when Westbrook was playing with Durant and with Harden, we being the collective I believe loved watching him because of how much he loved the game, much the same way as you said, right? But then he became a me-only player, right? We saw those triple-doubles. We saw the fact that he was getting that. I would love to see him concentrate on defense. I'd love to see him ball out as a complete player because I think he'd be a very good one.
Yeah.
I really do. I really think that he could take a lesson from Carmelo, take a lesson from Bill Walton, right? Who's still at Dead and Company shows if you've seen any of the last week's pictures, which are hysterical. By the way, he looks really old. Like really, I know he is really old, but he looks really old. Too many Dead and Company shows. But the fact is, I'd love to see him that way. Okay, moving on. I just got back from Wrigley. You know this. if you tune in to the show, I try and go to a stadium a year. This year, I went to a couple, including Lone Depot down in Miami, and so far Wrigley. I spent three games, including a doubleheader, which is a lot of baseball, a day-night doubleheader at Wrigley Field.
Way too much for me.
You know what, though? We caught a home run ball, so it ain't that bad. We were on TV. But the fact is, every single time I step into Wrigley and step up that center field, there aren't many stadiums that still allow you to come up through right behind home plate. Like you have to go in through the sides, right, and then come around.
Yep.
The steps up to home plate or steps right behind home plate still get me. It's like Field of Dreams every single time. It's like chills that go down. And I was wondering, I don't view Wrigley as my favorite stadium. I think Camden is still my favorite stadium for many different reasons. But I'd like your opinion on what you feel are the best stadiums that you've either been to or ones that you want to go to.
I've been to probably about half of them.
And it doesn't have to be baseball. It doesn't have to be baseball. Sorry.
Well, but most likely it's going to be. Because basketball, well, look, Cole Fieldhouse was the most ridiculous place to watch a game ever, but it hasn't been used in 20 years. I compare it to probably what the Boston Garden was because their air conditioning wasn't great. And the locker rooms for the visitors, out of what I understand, were really small. But it was bleeping loud. We were crazy mother bleepers. But that aside, I'm not going to include college stadiums because I think it's a different discussion point.
Okay.
NBA doesn't work because an NBA stadium just doesn't work the same way. Look, as much as I crush on baseball, the one thing I will say is going to a baseball, it is the only sport where going to the game is probably more enjoyable than watching it on TV at this point.
Hockey?
Hockey's 50-50 for me. Okay.
And to me, it has nothing to do with the stadium, by the way. Absolutely nothing. A hockey stadium is a hockey stadium. I'm looking more.
Hockey fair. Fine. Hockey's fair. Basketball and football are typically better for TV.
Yeah.
I've only been to 3 hockey stadiums. Once was the worst experience of my personal life. Once was the Thrashers game.
Oh.
Think back to 2003 or 2001.
Okay.
Do I have to relive my dating life on here?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I know what you're talking about.
You know where I'm going with this now.
I do.
One was the Thrashers. I've been to Devils games, and I've been to Nassau, and I've been to Madison Square. That's all I've really been to for hockey.
Okay.
Nothing really leaves any great impression one way or the other.
Oh, come on. RBI baseball, baby. 1992.
Yeah, that is the worst. That is the worst scoreboard I've ever seen. It is amazing. Baseball, there's 2 or 3 that I like. Camden is great. And I used to go to Camden pretty often when I lived down in DC. I think Petco is a wonderful place to watch a game. Been there a couple times. I think Wrigley's great. I mean, those are the 3 that stand out. I enjoy Fenway, but it's not to the same. But I also like them for different reasons.
Okay,
Wrigley,
so what do you like about each of them? Petco. Let's go with Petco first because I love Petco.
Petco is just the most comfortable, enjoyable place you can picnic out. Look, it's part of it's being in San Diego where it's 70 degrees year round.
Well, there's also nobody there, right? So that's
right.
certainly
well, now I assume people go because the team's relevant.
Okay,
but
fair.
The stadium is pretty. You can kind of picnic in the. It's like going to Little League World Series where you can picnic in the outfield. You can do this. Sure. There's a lot of moving parts. It's a really nice place to watch a game.
Sure.
Wrigley is great for old school feel. You have kind of Wrigleyville going in, kind of that whole neighborhood is based upon, similar to Fenway in Boston, is based around Wrigley Field. You go in, you have the Ivy, it used to be the Harry Carey. It had that really comfortable old school environment. And Camden's a nice mix of both. It's a really nice place to watch a game. It was the first of the modern stadiums, which was really enjoyable. And similar to what you said with Petco, it was really, really easy to get good tickets. Because to be honest, the Royals, I'm not about, even though ESPN wrote an article about it, I'm not really about to anoint the Orioles as the World Series favorite at this point.
No.
And they've been relatively irrelevant for 20 years.
Well, ever since Angelos bought them, basically.
No, they were relevant for a little while because in the 90s, because they were relevant in the 90s.
Yeah, Brady Anderson and Albert
Ripken,
Bell.
look, the end of Ripken. Palmeiro was there. Look, they went to the ALCS, I think, once or twice.
Yep.
They were good teams.
Correct. Look, I love Fenway for the history. Always have. I think Fenway and Wrigley, obviously, the town was built around the park, right? So there's always a coming to the park type feel where everybody comes to the park, whether or not you actually go to the game. And I think it's an event every single time there is a game, whether the Cubs are good or bad. Trust me, there were 3/4 of the fans at that game were Mets fans. More, and I would feel, but I don't think you'd ever get the same in the Red Sox. I don't think you'd ever have 3/4 of the fans being something else. The fact that both of those stadiums are so small lends itself to be a closer crowd. I don't like Fenway for one reason. The seats are tilted straight.
Yep.
So you always have to turn your head if you're not in a specific section. The bleachers, I've sat in the bleachers of both. For guys with back problems, you do not want to sit in the bleachers of Chicago. There are no backs to those bleachers. So that's not a great idea. Look, I do like Citi Field a lot, as long as I'm not in the left field corner.
I will say I enjoy it more than I like Yankee Stadium.
Yes, and certainly better than Shea, because nothing was worse than Shea. Yankee Stadium, I think, is an abomination. I think George Steinbrenner got exactly what George Steinbrenner wanted, which is everything that the fans did not. A much bigger stadium with a lot more luxury boxes and not as close proximity. You can actually fit three of the old Yankee stadiums into the new Yankee Stadium. That just tells you how big the new one is. We touched upon Wrigley. Petco, look, if you're going for tri-tip nachos every single time, those are phenomenal. AT&T.
They would make our top 5 nacho list?
Oh, absolutely. It may be the second best nacho list. Look, Gin Mill is really good. Gin Mill is good. We're going to have to replay that. Gin Mill was actually maybe NFL, maybe fantasy draft. We'll see if we can go. Maybe we'll go into the city. Where do you want to go? Where haven't you gone that's on your list to go, and why? Because we've done a good amount, right? I mean, we've done
about. I mean, I really liked. I mean, just kind of thinking back, I liked Safeco.
Yeah.
Oakland was magnificent.
There's a reason Oakland has been trying for a new stadium for the last 15 years.
I would like to see a game in St. Louis.
Yes.
I think even though I'm not a big baseball fan, I think as a sports fan, that would be something I would like to do.
Oh, here's what we do. We take Jake, we go to Chicago first, and then we take the train down to St. Louis.
I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
There's only one
hey,
problem.
Carly, how are you feeling about us taking your boy?
As I said, there's only one problem. I would like to, I'm going to probably, I think I'd like to take Jake next year to a game in Philly just because it's doable and it's really not much further of a drive to get in than Shea. As ridiculous as that sounds.
Have you been to Citizens Bank? Have you been to Citizens Bank? Okay.
No.
Good stadium. Wish it was more like Wrigley, right? They tried to make it so there would be a part about it, like a lot of bars around it. They may have built it up more recently, but that was the point. It's really in the middle of nowhere, which kind of sucks.
Yeah, but for me coming in from Jersey, it's very easy.
Very easy.
Very, very easy. So it's because it's literally on the Jersey-Philly border.
Yeah, yeah.
And for me, the drive is about 2 hours.
Yeah.
Which not great, but I mean, going into Shea is like an hour and a half because of traffic.
No, going into Shea is going into a cemetery, my friend. You're saying City Field.
Look, there's a better chance of me going to City and going to Flushing Meadows and going to the U.S. Open than driving into City.
Yeah.
Although I agree. I think Citi Field's a nice stadium. Is a pretty nice stadium, especially in comparison to Yankee Stadium, which is just horrendous.
Yeah, the Mets for their first 50 years got the worst stadium, but for the next 50 years they'll get the better stadium of the two.
Well, look, for the first 50 years, for most of the first 50 years, we had better ownership.
That's right.
I'm not sure we're going forward.
No. There is a point where you like the fact that you can buy, but you don't want to be that, right? I do not want to be the 2009 Yankees. I do not want to buy a championship.
No. Well, first of all, you would happily take buying a championship.
No, I wouldn't. No, I don't think I would.
Let's take a quick look at this team. You bought Scherzer.
Yes.
You bought Lindor.
I'll say half and half because we gave up people for him. We didn't just buy him. Look, when the Yankees bought their championship.
Oh, I agree. The 96 through 2000 teams were much more easy to root for.
Yeah.
Whether you like them or not, there was a lot of the base was homegrown, and then you had these supplemental players that were brought in.
That 2009 team was open your checkbook. Here we go.
Yeah. They spent $500 million on Burnett, Teixeira, and Rodriguez.
Right.
And it wasn't a particularly fun team to watch. I mean, it's baseball, but in general, it wasn't a fun team.
Okay, so you bought those three guys. You bought Marte, right? But you bought Marte for $18 million. Is that really? That's not buying a player, right?
No, I agree.
Canha was $10 million. You're not buying Canha, the left fielder. Other than Scherzer, you really didn't buy the team. Okay, you want to tell me Lindor is a buy? I can go around it, but no, I don't. I believe you bought Scherzer. Yeah, no question. You paid $43 million.
Yeah, you're right. And look, to buy one player to get you, if that's what's going to get you there, every team would do it.
Absolutely. You'll make it back in the funds from the World Series. But yeah, I don't want to be Uncle Stevie's going to buy me championships every single year. That's not where I'm at. That's not what I like. It's a reason I root for the Twins every year, even though the Twins are owned by Carl Poland, who is $1.5 billion. Right, exactly. I never cry for Major League ownership. They made money hand
for any of these guys.
Yeah, you don't cry for them at all. Okay, so going forward, we have about a month till fantasy football. So we have fantasy football. Just to go backwards in time here. Next week, we got the 27th. I will still be here. I will be seeing Seth. Maybe we'll do it on Friday instead, where I'll be. Sure. So we'll do our show on Friday next week, the 29th. Then we're into August, which I have to guess Seth probably takes off the first or second week, given it's baseball.
I'll give myself a break. I'll give myself a break 1 week.
So then we'll do the 12th, 19th, and 26th. One being NFL. One being actually NFL starts on the 11th this year. So we'll go the 19th, 26th, and 2nd for our previews. Okay. For Seth Kamens, who's over there.
By the way, we have 2 minutes left. Quick question.
Yeah.
What did you think of? Did you see the first episode of The Captain?
Did not.
I watched it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I have any interest in the rest of it.
Did you learn anything?
Yes. The one thing I did learn, which was fascinating, was Hal Newhouser, who was the two-time MVP in the 40s.
Yeah, he was a scout. He was a scout
for Houston.
Yeah.
And when Houston passed on Jeter to take Phil
Nevin, yep.
He said no one respects him anymore, and he retired.
Yeah, he quit.
I thought that was fascinating. Yeah. I thought listening to action. Plus, I have a client of mine who was interviewed on the show, and we have a good friend who was part of the musical ensemble of the show.
There you go.
I found it boring. I don't find him interesting.
I think it's too recent. I think this is the extent. Look, if you want, this is the extent of The Last Dance, and the problem is everybody that's watching The Captain saw The Captain play. So what do we need to watch this for?
Yeah, I didn't mind the Brady one. I thought that was a little bit more, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll see it differently. As I'm sure I'll watch the episodes at some point. But I felt nostalgia with Jordan, and especially people who didn't we know people who never saw Jordan.
Right, exactly.
Jeter, first of all, wasn't Jordan. Jeter wasn't Tom Brady, not even in the realm. Jeter was a great player, but there are a lot of great players. I don't need this. I watched it because it was on.
Well, watched it because there's no other sports. That's why you watched it.
Yeah. I mean, but he's not someone to me that's really worthy of a 7-part documentary.
Nope.
Unless he's going to talk about the sex with the girls and giving them like gift baskets afterwards. That'd be interesting.
Well, maybe you get that in part 2. So,
Can't wait. Holding my breath.
Seth Kamen's over there. I'm Sean Palmer over here. We'll see you guys next Friday. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye.
Adios.